I mentioned the background of this sikha, because if you look at this sikha, there are two things which are questionable. I don't mean in the teichen of the sikha. If you look at the sikha, you look at the date of the sikha, it says Mesicha Shabbos Pashas Chayisora Tov Lamed. At the end of every sikha, it says always when the Rebbe said it. So someone once asked me, there must be a typing mistake because this is a Pasha Toldos. So here it says Mesicha Shabbos Pashas Chayisora Tov Lamed. Should be Pasha Toldos, probably Tov Lamed, but a mistake. Actually, Pasha Toldos Tov Lamed, there was no Fabringen. This is from Pasha Chayisora. And that's one question. Also, if you look at the end of the Sikha, there's something that's very seldom in the Sikha. At the end of the Sikha, there's a Hisofet, not in two columns. And that Hisofet comes, it says, Mesicha Shabbos Pashas Toldos Tov Shin Lamed Dalet. So what is this all about? What is this Hisofet here? So we're not going to learn the Hisofet, but at the end of the Sikha, when we finish learning, I will just say the background because for these two things. Why is Shabbos Pashas Chayisora? It's one thing, and why? What is that whole hemshech that the Rebbe added later? He suffered to one of the others here. Okay, now we can start a sikha. It says like this: Ala posik vayatik mishom vayachpe be'er acheres v'lei rovi alel. This is in the psukim of this week's parasha where it says that Yitzchak, they dug a well, and the shepherds of the Geror, they had a fight with her. They fought against it. They argued, and they said it's theirs, and therefore they called the name of the Be'er Asek. Kisaska Yimei. That means they argued. Then they dug another one. The pasuk says Vayikra Shmo Sitna, called a Sitna, which also means argument. Then this pasuk Vayatek Mishom. Then Yitzchak moved away. Vayachber Be'er Acheres, and he dug another well. They didn't argue over it. He called it Rechaves. Why? And he said, why? Expand, or whatever. So now, Hashem made it wider for us, made it more spacious for us, whatever it is. And we will be able to multiply in the land. That's a pasuk. Maitik Rasha, so Rasha quotes from the pasuk just two words, the Farinu Boretz. Mefarish Rasha says, what does it mean? Kitargume, like the Targum says, V'nefesh Ba'ara. V'nefesh Ba'ara means we will expand in the land. Now, when the Rebbe said the Sikha, actually, I remember the Rebbe said that the Rasha only have two words. Which, what can you say already on the Rasha? What's going to be there? But there's a lot of things here, and there's a lot of things to say. So, first, the Rebbe says, the Meforshim write the Kavanas Rashi. What does Rashi want to tell us? Like we always say, when Rashi says something, he's trying to explain something. What is not understood in the pasuk that Rashi has to explain it? Rashi only says something if there's what to explain. So the Meforshim write, the word farinu is past. Farinu means we multiplied. But since he said now Hashem made it wide for us, how could he say we already multiplied? He says now Hashem made it achove, and because of that, he multiplied and made us multiply before, made us expand before. Because of Rashi, so therefore Rashi says Schapiro that here the word of farinu doesn't mean the past. It's like the Targum says, vin nefesh, we will multiply, we will expand. That's what Rashi is trying to answer. The Rebbe says, but you can't say that's what Rashi is trying to tell us. We find in the Torah many, many times words that themselves is a past tense. And if you add a vav in the beginning, it changes it for the future. It's known, part of the things in the Torah is there is a vav hamahapech, a vav that changes, a word that is really lashon over. If you add a vav, it means, and it will happen later. And it's Rabbi in Haora 4 says, even in this capital itself, he brings a few psukim where there's a vav that changes the tense. In K, Porsche, Gamba, Nidin, Dedan. So it's very obvious in this case. Schapiro, Shufarinu, Bavav, Hushani, that since it says Ufarinu with a vav, so even though the word farinu itself would have meant future, but with the vav, it means that we will, it meant, past. But with the vav, it means the future. We will multiply. The ain't kan kusha, there's no kasha. That's a normal thing in Chumash. The ain't tzedek l'lasha el farshe. Rashi doesn't have to explain it. It's just like all other places where the Torah says avov, which changes from the past to the future. Rashi doesn't say anything because that's a normal thing the way we learn Chumash. So why would Rashi say it here? So we're back to the kasha. What is Rashi trying to tell us? Gam tzorech lov, we also have to understand. Rashi mafarish teva sufarinu. According to their pshat, all Rashi is bothered by the word of farinu. How could the farinu mean? Farinu normally means the past. When he's saying something that just happened now, and because of that, with the past, that's what bothers Rashi. And that's what Rashi is trying to explain. But like Teva's bothered, Rashi is not adding anything to the word ba'aretz. And the same thing when the Rashi quotes the Targum, the Nefesh ba'ara, says, Ki ba'ara hamutek b'Rashi, the word ba'ara that Rashi quotes from the Targum, also Eina Meisa Bir b'Teva's bothered. That doesn't add anything to ba'aretz. So we see from the pshat of Rashi that he's not adding anything to the word ba'aretz. So all he's doing is explaining what ufarinu means. So why does he quote the word ba'aretz in the Dibra Maschal? And this is also Rashi Shita, and other Mefarshim also learn like that whenever he quotes from the Dibra Maschal, the words from the Posik, it's all negaya to the pshat that he's going to say, or to the kasha that he has, or something to answer, not just tam. Here, all Rashi should have been maitik ufarinu and say ketargum evenefesh. Why does he have to bring the word ba'aretz? And b'meili he has to also bring the word ba'ara in the Targum. He should have said just v'nefesh, just the word of farinu, and say v'nefesh. Habir b'zeh, the Rebbe has a different pshat.
Basically, I'm broadcasting Rabbi Shapiro's Sichas share, the one playing.
Habir b'zeh, so the pshat is like this. Ufarinu v'miloshem peire. Okay, we know that the farinu comes from the word peire, which means fruit. Upirish hakosuv v'nasa peire. So when the pasuk says ufarinu means we will make peiros in the future. There's no problem. The word future is no problem because the Vav changes it. We will make peiros. What kind of peiros? Since we're talking about farinu, hirchev Hashem lanu, He made us expand us wider, which is talking b'bnei Adam concerning people. So what does it mean? Shehem yasu peiros. The people will make fruit. What does it mean? People will make fruit. People making fruit means that they will multiply with children, sons and daughters. Like it says, okay. So that's what we would push a pshat, learn pshat and posuk ufarinu, that we will have more children, we will multiply in children. But on the other hand, but we look at it, we see that the word of farinu here is not the same as the word of farinu, the word of pru. Why? The posek pru, Pirish Rashi, that posek Rashi says that what does the word pru mean? Why does it say two words? Pru means to multiply, and ravu means to multiply. Why is the Torah saying to double ocean? So Rashi said like this: Im leyomer ela pru, had it just said pru, pshat would be we would learn one person will multiply, which means from him will come another person. So the word of Vu teaches you that one person will have more than one, will have a lot. This is the way Rebbe learns pshat. See, the Rebbe in the Order 7 brings that the Sifsei Chachamim learns a different pshat in Rashi. He says over there, Rashi means, Pru means that you'll give birth to one. Ravu means that the woman could give birth to more than one at a time. You could have twins, you could have triplets. That's what the chilik between Pru and Ravu. But the Rebbe says that's not the pshat. The pshat is Pru means a person will have one child in his lifetime. The Tevisha said you will multiply. Comes the word Ravu means that in your lifetime you'll have more than one child. Klaimer, what does that mean? From here we see that the word Pru could fit even to one child. That's what Rashi says. If it say Pru, we would say you only have one child. But in our case, but in our posik, when the word of farinu, which means to multiply, comes behemshich to the previous words that Hashem made us wide for us, and as a result of the hirchiv, ufarinu boris will multiply. Ein mistaber klal. It doesn't make sense to say ki akavane hish echad meilut echad v'leyeser. That the Torah is saying hirchiv Hashem lonu, and what will be farinu will be pru. What's pru? You'll have one child, which means hainish lei yakar. It means you won't be barren. You'll have a child. Can't be. That's clearly not hirchiv. So when the pasuk is hirchiv, you can't tie shufarinu like a normal shot. You would think, like it says by pruvu. So automatically we understand shufarinu kan ubedugmas. That the farinu here is like we find another place where it says a similar lotion, and there it doesn't mean that. It's like it says in Mashakosov, it says in Mishpotim, as Hashem says, I'll chase the goyim out from Eretz Yisrael, but I won't chase them all out in 1 year. Because if everyone is chased out, the land will be empty, and it's no good because the chayas will come. I'll send them away slowly, till you will multiply. Now, what does the word there mean? It's from the same shadish. Tifre comes from the word pere, by people, like pru. Schapiro tifrehu, there the pshat tifrehu sheyeh boras harbe b'nei adam. I'll chase them away slowly till you fill up the land with many people. So we see that sometimes the word pru doesn't mean the way it says in Rashi over there in pru, which means one. Sometimes it means a lot. So here too, Pirushu farinu must be the pshat of farinu she'echot meilit harbe, that you'll have a lot of children. So poshat farinu means a lot of children. Now the Rebbe in the Orah Bavonus, the Rebbe has a klal that we can't say Rashi relies on something that's written later, unless he quotes it. But if something that Rashi says, and we don't understand it, you can't say Rashi meant it based on something that he wrote later. If he meant that, he would write it, because the one that's learning Chumash officially didn't learn it later yet. He could rely on something he wrote before. So how do we say here that we have to say that the word farinu here is like the posik tifre, which is in Parsha Mishpatim? So the Rebbe Dora says he doesn't mean here that Rashi relies on it. He's just telling us that we see that sometimes the farinu is like this. We see that's like Loshna posik. Sometimes pru means one, and sometimes it can mean a lot. So here obviously it has to mean a lot, because it says hirchiv Hashem lon, and therefore farinu. So Kemi, you'll have one child. That means a lot of children. That makes a very strong kasha. If that was the bracha, that you'll have a lot of children, they only have 2 children, 2 sons, Yankov and Esav. How does the word of farinu fit there? Which means, which comes which means a lot. And here, in the order 11, the Rebbe says, maybe it means grandchildren, the zaracha to the later generations. So he says, here it doesn't mean that, because the pasuk says, Hashem lonu. So it means us. Us. So it doesn't mean descendants. It means us. And all he had was 2 children. So therefore Rashi says, so we must say that the pasuk of farinu doesn't mean children like we've been learning till now. But we said could be farinu means 1 child, but that can be. It means a lot of children. That also can be, because it never happened. So it obviously farinu means to multiply, but not children. Like pru means children. Ki'im v'neifush. Rashi, v'neifush means, what does a neifush mean? And Rashi doesn't have to explain what it means, because ukvar kosav Rashi Rashi explained this word on the posik Shema Echad Pishain. When it says there were 4 rivers, and one river was called Pishain. So Rashi says, Rashi says, Val Shem Shemeimov Mizborchin. Why is it called Pishain? Because the water gets blessed, multiplies. The alien, and it goes up. Umashkin is haaretz, and it irrigates the land. Therefore, Nikra Pishain is called Pishain Kmei Fosha Paroshav. There's a posik Fosha Paroshav, posik in Chabaka, which means that your soldiers will multiply. So what does that mean? Not children that you'll give birth to. That the thing itself grows, like the river itself expands. Your army will expand. So now that we find that there is that the word Pishain means to expand, that's what Rashi tells us. That al derech zekan. So here when the posuk says ufarinu means not to have children, but here ufarinu means v'neifush, means hakavone sheYitzchak ba'atzmei beribe v'gadlus. Yitzchak himself will expand, not to having children. What does it mean? Like it says later, what happened? He grew. He became richer and richer and richer. Ki'ad Gadol made very rich. He had a lot of sheep and a lot of cattle and a lot of work, and he had all kinds. That's what happened. That's what the pasuk means. That Hirchev Hashem lanu, and we will multiply. Ufarinum is add, multiply. What Rashi says, it doesn't mean children. That's what Rashi Bavonins. The kasha was what's Rashi telling us. Not like they say Tevon for Loshen Over to Loshen Osid. The Bavonins Farina, normally you would mean children, and either way it doesn't make sense. It can't be one child, it can be many children. So he says, no, here it means v'neifish. V'neifish means he himself will expand. So that's what Rashi adds. In that case, why does Rashi bring the Targum? Rashi should have said on his own, because the pasuk, you must say that's what the pasuk means. It can't be children because it can be one, it can be a lot. One is because big deal, that's a hirchiv, it can be. And then it can be a lot because it didn't happen. So that must be, it means here that he will himself expand. So why do you need the Targum for? So the Rebbe on Tammuz, the reason is like this. Most places where the Torah says pru, which means taka children, still mefarish Targum pushu. The Targum uses the same lotion of pushu. So what does that mean? That means Targum, according to the Targum, gan keshaire behilotas v'lodas. Even when it talks about children, asiyas peiras, that you will make fruit next generations. Also, be'etzem, it has the meaning of expanding. The person expands really when he has children. So even when it means the simple pshat children, it also comes from the root of pishin, of expanding. Moving for that, we understand according to the Targum, Schapiro. So when the pshat of a farina means only that you yourself will expand, like here, it's not an exception. Because when Rashi says a pshat in a posig, even though there might be a hechrech, something that forces you to say the pshat, but if it's a yetzim in aklal, it's an exception. Rashi doesn't like it. Rashi always tries to look, do we find it someplace else in the Torah? That makes it more simple to say that. But if not, if you have a hechrech to say it, you have a hechrech to say it, you must say it, you must say it. But Rashi always likes to have a chover. So Rashi brings the Targum. Because from the Targum we see that this is the normal pshat. The normal pshat of Bru, even when it's talking about children, means you will expand, because having children is also your expansion. This meaning of expansion of a nefesh is included in the regular pshat of Bru, even when it means children. That's what Rashi is. Mitzayim means he brings it from the Targum. To teach us that this pshat that I'm saying, the nefesh, is not in the category of something that I have no other one, no chaver, no friend, no other posik, which means the same thing. Because wherever it says pru, it means the same thing. That's why Rashi brings it from the Targum to show, because the Targum says it all over. So l'chura, everything is fine. You could say that this whole pshat is not really a must. You don't have to say the pshat. Because yesh lafarish or farina kavana levlodis. That means you could say like this. Farina means you will multiply, means you'll have more children, which is spades, like fruit that grow, there will children, you'll have more children. The the kasha was, it can be, because if it means to have a lot of children, he says hirchiv, but he didn't. He only had 2 children. That's what we said. Who says? You could type that even though it means children, it fits to hirchiv. He only had 2 children. Rashi wrote something earlier in Vayera, and we said that when Rashi sometimes doesn't mention something because he relies on what he said before. Rashi in Parashat Vayera says, "Bnei bonim areim kibonim." Grandchildren are like children. This is not descendants. See, before we were talking about lazaracho, to your later generations, but grandchildren are children. Im Kain, and Rashi says in Pshuto Shel Mikra that you could call them children. Im Kain, Avshalem, so you could say Shekoy Abnei Yaakov. You could say that it means the children of Yaakov. Shoyish Shnei Mosar. The Dinah, there was 12 sons and Dinah a daughter. Yeah, that could be. So it fits to the posik, that the posik says, Hirchev Hashem, Hashem made you white, expand, and therefore you will have children, including the grandchildren. And grandchildren was a lot. Yeah, 13 grandchildren. That's why Rashi also quotes in the beginning of the post of the Rashi, not only the word of farina, which he is explaining and translating, he also the word borders. And b'meila case of gambe perusha v'neifish bara. So when he brings the targum, that brings the pshat, he also has to bring the word which is parallel to the borders, so it's bara. But why does he bring the word borders? Because that's going to prove that the posik does not mean the grandchildren. The posik does not mean Yaakov's children. Because bnei Yaakov are loyal nailed the borders. They were not born in this land where he was, which is Gror, and Gambale Eretz Yisrael B'chlal, and B'chlal wasn't in Eretz Yisrael. Ki b'chutz loretz. They were born all in Choron, in Chutzlaretz. So you can't say when it says that it means the children of Yaakov, because they weren't born in Baretz. You see in the orders here, in order 21, the Rebbe said they were all born not in Eretz Yisrael. So all 11 for sure. But the Gay Binyamin seems like it's not so clear if it's called Eretz Yisrael or not. Because in one Rashi, Vayishlach, it says Neila Be'eretz Canaan, was born in Eretz Canaan. And then in Rashi Vayichi, it says that Yaakov said, I did that when Rachel gave birth and she died. So he says, and I buried her where I did, and I didn't even take her into Eretz Yisrael. His mashman that, and she died by childbirth, that Yoma was not born in Eretz Yisrael. Whatever, which it doesn't matter. So if maybe he wasn't, but the others were, most of them were 11 sons and a daughter were all born in Chutzlaretz. So since the pasuk saying Ufaninu ba'aretz can't mean the grandchildren. Okay, that's one thing. Now the Rebbe says, I some another point I want to make in Rashi. Why does he quote what the Targum says? Rashi should have said, look at the Targum. Like Rashi says many times. The person whoever is going to learn it will see Targum. That's what we do in other psukim. Rashi says Targum. Look at the Targum, see what he says. Why here does Rashi quote the Lashon of the Targum? Now, there are other places also where Rashi quotes the Lashon of the Targum. So, every time he quotes, you got to find out why. Yeah, you got to learn it and find out why. Because since sometimes he doesn't, obviously it's not important. He relies on the person to look up. So why does he write it sometimes? Good, you have to find out. So we're talking about this pasuk. We have to find out why does Rashi quote the Targum. The answer in this case is the Targum can steig your sois. If you look in Targum, there are two versions what the Targum says. One is the Yafshinona, and the other one is the Nefesh, like Rashi quotes. Rashi quotes what the Targum says, to teach us the right girsa in Targum is the Nefesh. Now, all of a sudden Rashi is trying to tell us what the proper girsa in Targum is. Rashi doesn't do that usually. Here it's the gate to push it to the touch of the words. So we have to know. The Yavshinona Pirish Shahu Yafishesonu. Yavshinona means he will multiply us, he will expand us. That goes on who? The Koyal Hashem, it goes on to Eibish, which are the previous words. The Pasuk says like this: Ki ata hirchi v'Hashem lonu, Hashem made us wide, and ufarino, if it Nafshinona means, and he will expand us. So it goes on to Eibish. The Nefesh Pirish, Sha'onu Matzmeinu Nefesh. Nefesh means we will expand. We will on our own expand. The Koyal Yitzchak Abayis, it goes on Yitzchak's house. Now, Lemaisa, so what's the difference which way it is? So far, in Chassidus, the Rebbe is going to show a big thing about this, that this goes on us or on Eibish. That's going to be the next part. But in Pshuta Shel Mikra, that makes no difference. But we have to know the Taish of the Pasuk. So Rashi says that Rashi holds that the Taish of the Pasuk is not that Hashem is going to make us expand, that we will expand. So Rashi tells us that that's the Taish by quoting the Lashon of the Targum, so we know which one is the right one. That this expansion is something that he's saying we will expand. But then the Rebbe says, from the Yenish Chassidus in this Rashi, he's like this. Rashi maitik Lashon HaTargum v'nefesh bara. Rashi, as we said, quotes the Lashon of the Targum v'nefesh, which we said before, because Rashi wants to tell us v'nefesh means we will expand. So according to this Taich, Hainu, it comes out, Sheba Posik Yeshna based on Yonas. And this Posik has two things here. Number one, Aleph, Ki ata hirchev Hashem lonu. Posik is like this. This is the Posik. Ki ata hirchev Hashem lonu, ufarinu ba'aretz, which means the nefesh ba'aretz. The first thing is Hashem made it wide, hu inyan abamil mailo. But something that the Eibishter is going to do it. It says the Eibishter will do this. Then the nefesh ba'aretz, we will expand, Hainu avedas ha'adam. That's something that we have to do. So what's Rashi doing here in Chassidus? Rashi is hinting that what's the tachlis? Why did Hashem make the harchava? The goal is the nefesh ba'ara she'odam yavid. The tachlis of everything Hashem gives us is that we have to use it to work with it. Tachlis kavanas bria so'elam ba'odam. The tachlis hakavana of why the Eibishter created the person and the world. Like the HaKadosh Baruch, why it was created by the Eibishter, Hirchiv Hashem, which is something the Eibishter did, Ki she'odem yiga v'yaved bazeh. So a person shall harvest, a person should toil and work with what the Eibishter gave us. Okay, Mishikosa, as a person says, Odem lo'amo yulav, a person was created to work. Or he says in the order 24, when the Eibishter put Odem Arish Nechav in Gan Eden, it says Lo'ovdo l'shamri, put him in l'chatchilah to work. So the Eibishter wants us to work. So the Eibishter gives us things, material, tools, whatever, and he wants us to work. So the pasuk says, Hirchev Hashem Lonu, Hashem is, and then the nefesh, and we will work on it. Ve'efin aveidahu, and what do you have to do? And the Rebbe is going to medayik al pichsidis in the word parinu and the word boretz, v'nefesh and bara. V'nefesh means we will expand. That means we have to work on expanding. But then Rashi also quotes the word boretz, ba'ara. That means that when we work, when we expand it by working, sheha'odem yavet im ha'elon. You have to expand with the world. That's like boretz, ba'ara, in the earth. You have to take the world, the inyanov, and the inyanim of the world, at shemagiyah ledarge sheha'odem keviyachol meisik, Mesid, which is the nefesh alabriya. You work so much with the world that's kiviyachol, as if you push it, adding to the creation. As Eibishter created it. You add to more, you add to the world on top of the creation of the Eibishter. Haina, what is that on top of the creation? I know that says in many places. You reveal a lukus through Torah mitzvahs, even in such a place that as far as the creation, Elokus is not revealed. The Eibishter created the world, and the world doesn't reveal Elokus. That's why the Eibishter made it. And he said, I'm giving you this world, and I want you now to work with the world. And if you work with the world and bring Elokus, you're finishing off basically what I started. You are adding to my creation. The Gemara says, but certain things it says that you do, you become a partner in the creation. You become a partner in the creation. How are you a partner in the creation? You created. Yes. If we do it, so the Eibishter created part and lets us finish it. But Yisayim the Chazal even said more. Just like the Eibishter creates worlds. So your fathers means that the Ovis means Eden could create worlds. So the Eibishter, this is the Pushat in the Pasuk, and that's why Hashem, what Hashem made, and that's why it's Negeya. It's Negeya. I said that in the Chassidus, why Rashi wants to bring the Lashon of the Targum, that the Targum is telling what we'll do, not what the Eibishter will do, to teach us. That's the whole goal. The whole goal is Hirchiv and what we do. Omnam yesh mokem lit, a person ketayne, echev sherado, how's it possible? Hashem created the world. So he created it with these limitations. How could any creature, whether he's a person or even a malach, how could you add to what David created it like this? So that's how it is. What are you going to add? So that's also hinted in this pasuk. The pasuk says, "Ki ato hirchiv Hashem lonu." Hashem made it wide for us. Hainu shegam hakeach al zeh sheyuchal haodam lonu laharchiv l'heisiv abriyad, that the keach that we people are able to add to widen the creation, came from David. That's the time. Hirchiv Hashem lonu. It's takalonu. He did it to us. He gave us the keach, but who did it? He did it. Meaning, shehirchiv v'nosan l'bnei Yisrael keach shelamayla medidus v'agbolas. The Eibishter broadened, widened, and gave the Yidden the keach beyond the limitations. V'lochem b'yecheltom. Therefore, they're able to. B'meila tafkidim. That's their job. Levatel agbolas elam ulachivei. To be mevatel, destroy the boundaries of the world, which has the boundaries of teva, of not being gilei lakus, and we're able to change that. And to widen it, then he says, beruchnius, spiritually, that's what it says, if we do that, we'll also add the gashmias. It says, if you do Torah mitzvahs, you bring a bracha, like the pasuk says, if we do Torah mitzvahs, then the earth gives its crop. So even the physical things of the world will grow, will expand if we do Torah mitzvahs. And that it's Hakedesh by Eretz Yisrael, it says it's Ketzvi. It says that Eretz Yisrael is compared to a deer. Why is it compared to a deer? So it says just like a deer, the skin is too small for the animal. A skin, if you'll skin a deer, take off the skin, and then you want to put back the meat and the bones into the skin, it won't fit. When it's on the skin, on him, it expands. So the Gemara says that the same thing is Eretz Yisrael. Shamokim hagashmi mispashet. It says Eretz Yisrael is called Eretz Hatzvi. If there are more people that want to live there, it'll expand, physically expand. whatever it means, physically expand. Ad v'nefesh b'ara, till portion we bring an expansion in the whole world. So this is what the psukim are telling us. B'chsidus. So Rashi says v'nefesh, and the nefesh what we do, behemshech to hirchiv Hashem, and that and v'nefesh what we do, and all that comes in the keich of David. The same inyan is merumas gamma mashakosiv is hinted in another posik, a posik that's written in Tilim Kapitel Pei Aleph. There it says, "Anechi Hashem Alekecha, I am Hashem your God, Hamalcha Meretz Mitzrayim, who picked you up, took you out of Mitzrayim, but elevated you out of Mitzrayim. Harchei Picha, widen your mouth, va'amaleyu, and Hashem says, I will fill it." The Gam Kam Beis Inyonim. Here too, you have two Inyonim. Number one, Anechi Hashem Alekecha, Hamalcha Meretz Mitzrayim. The first thing Hashem said, what He did. Hu inyan abom ilmayla. David, I took you out of Mitzrayim. Second thing He says, what you should do. Harchei Picha, widen your mouth. And I says, I'll fill it. That's something that the person has to do. Ha'odom tzorich laseis, a person has to do laharchiv esapeh. He, David made it, took him out, but now you have to widen your mouth. More than it's according to the way it's creation, make it wider. Okay, now, like we said before, that ha'odom tzorich laseis laharchiv esapeh, a person has to widen the creation. Now, I said before at the end of the sikh, I'm going to explain, so I'm not going to explain it now, what the background of this, but I just want to say that in Ha'orah 31, and later I'll say why the Rebbe said the Sikha. In Ha'orah 31, the Rebbe says that this thing is written Kapitel Pei Aleph. So he says like this, Pei, the Gemara says, is that the letter Pei is the word Peh, is the letter for the mouth. Pei Aleph is when that Pei gets wider. There's an extra thing to the Pei. So the Rebbe says, this Heroah that it says here, Hashem says, I give you Mamaila, then I want you to be marchiv it, to be marchiv the mouth, is written in Kapitel Pei Aleph. Why? Because Pei Aleph means it comes after the Pei, so you have the Peh is the Peh, and then on top of that, you want it to be Malat. And the Rebbe says also that this, when do you start saying Kapitel Pei Aleph? You start saying when you become 80. And then you're entering into the 81st year. Because when you become 80, then that's called Shleimus HaTeva. It says at Posik, a person lives 70 years, the im bigvurais, shmeinim shana. That means if you live to 80 years, you reach gvurais. That's reach the tachlas shleimus. When you finished 80 and you're entering already a day into the next year, this is when you have to go beyond the teva. 80 is the shleimus HaTeva. And here you have to start working. You have to do this idea that the Rebbe says in the Sikh here, to be marchiv, to bring more lakus, more than the creation has, that's by the age of 81. And the Rebbe said it behemshech to somebody who became 81, as I'll say all the details about this and about the other thing also after, as soon as we finish. So here we have this Kapitel Tilim, which says the same thing. I took you out of Mitzrayim, and then Harchapicha, you do your part. The Gam is that we have the same kasha as we said before. Since David created the mouth in a certain way, like the Pasuk says, David told Moshe Rabbeinu, "Mi so pelodom." Moshe said, "I can't go to Mitzrayim. I have no mouth. I can't talk." He says, "Who made a mouth?" So David made a mouth, and he made it in a certain way. How could you say you want him to be marchiv, to make it more? Whatever it represents, to speak more Torah, this, whatever more. The teres is the same like we said before. Before we had the same kasha. How could you say v'nefesh we should work when bring a lakus into Welt when the teva is different? The answer was Hashem gave us the koyach. Here also, in the beginning of the pasuk it says Aneich Hashem Alekecha Amalcha Meretz Mitzrayim. Am Hashem who elevated, took you out of Mitzrayim. Eretz Mitzrayim means Eretz v'Mitzorim Megvulim, means a land full of limitations. Mitzorim Megvulim. That represents limitations of the world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu heles bnei Yisrael b'Mitzorim Megvulim Eila. The Eibishter elevated them. He picked them up higher than these limitations. For Adarabah, Parina B'Oretz, that now we could in the Oretz break the limitations. Shemedayik bein the case of the Torah is Medayik doesn't say Hameid Tziyach, I took you out of Mitzrayim Kiberova Mekayim, like most places. Kiyim Hamalcha, he says I picked you up from Mitzrayim. Hainu Sheheles HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'mayla Magbolos, I picked you up beyond all the limitations. V'lochen Yochel. Therefore, it's possible, v'tzorich liyas, and if it's possible, it has to be the harchapicha, widen your mouth, v'ho'elam, widen the world, levatles ha'agbolas, to be mevatel ha'agbolas. And in order 34, it says, not only in Welt, but in Torah also, you could even add to the Torah. The Zohar says that every Yid has a chiyuv to lafosha. It says the same lashon, lafosha. You have to expand the Torah. Everyone, whatever he could think of a chidush in Torah, has to say it. You have to say it in the proper way. So it all shows that we have the keach to expand. Even though David created it not that way, but David wants, when he created the world, Yidden should add to the Rabbi. And he gives the keach on this. So we see that in the posik of our parsha. We see it in the capital Pei Aleph in this posik. This is the explanation of the Chassidus, the kindness to Rusrupus Arosha, the tiny that Rusrupus Arosha had to Rabbi Akiva. He said to Rabbi Akiva like this: if Eibishter loves poor people, why doesn't he feed them? Now, if he doesn't feed them, obviously he doesn't want them to have. When the sinner says tzedakah, when you give tzedakah, you should go to Gehenim. You're going against Eibishter's will. If the Eibishter made him poor, and he even gave a mashal, if a person has an evet who sinned, and he put him in jail and said no one should go and feed him. And he found out someone went to feed him, will he be happy? He'll be angry at the guy. I said not to feed him. So same thing here, the Eibishter made the guy poor. He doesn't want you to give tzedakah. What does Rabbi Akiva's answer? He said, your mashal is a good mashal. It's a mashal only if he put an eved in jail, a servant, a slave. What happens if he got angry at the melech, got angry at his son, and he put his son in jail and said no one should feed him? And quietly, someone went behind the back and fed him. And the king found out. What would happen? He'll be very happy that you did it. So the same thing here, he said, the Rebbe is happy, gives tzedakah. That's the simple story in Gemara. The Rebbe teaches, Hainu, Shahuta, what was really the time of Trusupas Arosha? If David created the poor people in the form of poverty, how could someone change that? Add to it. How could he change? How could he add to it? And the Rebbe says in Order 36 that even though the story and the question is about tzedakah, but really tzedakah represents all the mitzvahs. As he says, because in Tanya, tzedakah is called Klolos HaMitzvahs. It really means all the mitzvahs. And it goes back to what we said before. The kasha is, how could you change what David made? How could any mitzvah do it? If David made it, that's it. Rabbi Akiva answered in Shebnei Yisrael in Bonav Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that Eden are the children of David. What means shall they zem movement? So that answer we understand. First of all, Poshup Shas Tzarech Litn also tzedakah Pshat Shas. Simple Pshat in the Gemara that therefore you have to give tzedakah because David wants you to give because it's like a child of his. But the second thing it does, it answers the question: how could we even change if David created? How is it possible to change? So the answer is Ki. He said, what are we? We're children. So if you're children, we're having a neshama, chelik of David. And the Alter Rebbe in Tanya says the moshel to a neshama is k'mei shaben. He gives a moshel of a son to a father. That's how we are to David. If we're a child of David and David is higher than Akbolas, he gave us the keach. We could also be higher. Not only is it not against his will, that's what he wants. Not only that's what he wants, he gives us the power, the strength, the ability to do it. Because of that, the Pasuk tells us that the promise and it gives even more. Not only does he give the keich, we said before the Aveda. Like we said, he gives us, and then he says, go and work on it. So he gives us keich. He even helps that after we do the Aveda, he helps that the Aveda should accomplish what it's supposed to. The Aveda should make fruit, the Tachlisa should reach its goal. It should actually do it. David has worked to make a suffering world. Okay, you could try, but maybe it won't work. David promises, I'll give you the keich for that too. The Messiah, like in this pasuk, it says, first he says, I took you out of Mitzrayim, and I gave you the keich. So therefore, open, widen your mouth, which is the nature. If you do that, I'll fill it up. David should do his share. He is guaranteed. David should fulfill it. David should fill his mouth. And even this, that David says, I will make sure that it accomplishes, is also hinted in the pasuk that we're learning about in which our parsha. The words of Farina Ba'aretz, it's not a lotion that asking, davening or asking, when you daven for something, You try, you hope it'll be, but you're not sure. Ki moloshem vada, he says for sure it's going to happen. Ki kanal, as we said before, muftochim, we are guaranteed by David. If we fulfill David's rotzen, and we do the Aveda that he wanted, we certainly come to the Tachlis. Everything is meduyik. Not only for Irina Boris, we will add, multiplying the world, bring a lakus into the world. The way it's a Loshen Kedesh, that's the Farinu. But Rashi quotes Kim Gam Ketargume, like the Targum in Nefesh Vara. What does that mean? It says in Chassidus, the word of the Loshen of Targum is secular. It's not holy. It's not Loshen Kedesh. So Loshen Targum represents secular things. Loshen HaKedesh represents holy things. When we're saying here that we're going to accomplish to bring a lakus into the world, and we'll promise us not only into the yonim of kedusha, we'll add to it. We'll bring it into the physical world. Also in the yonim which is chayil, we need it down. Peil marchava ve'isofa. We peil the wideness and the addition. Leirag b'ha'elam kvishu b'loshen kedesh. Not only the world, it's loshen kedesh. Shegam zeh elam b'loshen helen. Even the world in loshen kedesh is also a helen. It's also not betachlis gilei lakus. So we'll add to that. But not only that, ki im gam ben yonei chayil shalom elam. Even in the secular things of the world, which is ba'ara, the word natargum, loshen targum. Shegam b'hem nasal izbarach dirah izbarach. Even in the yonim of gashvi's aveld, we'll make a dirah for this barach. When this will be finished, that's the promise of David. The promise of David that the flesh will see the Elokus, will become Niskayim because we will have done the Aveda David wants us to do, gave us the keich for it, and he promises it will accomplish. Now, I said before, I'm going to explain two things. Number one, I'm going to explain, see right here, we finished the Sikha, and it says, Mesicha Shabbos Parshas Chayesora Tovshin Lamed. This is a Irasha in Parshas Toldos. Usually the Rebbe spoke on every Shabbos, Irasha of that week. Shabbos Parshas Toldos was no Farbrenget of Shalabah. This Sikha, the Rebbe said, Shabbos Chayesora. And the Rebbe said, why he's saying this. The Rebbe said, why he's going to say a Sikha on Irasha Parshas Toldos. He said it's connected to the way he used to call Shazar, he the Denu. The Hanocha doesn't say it. I don't remember why we didn't put it in the Hanocha. But remember the Rebbe said, that this is in his honor. Shazar's birthday was that week, the coming week in Parshat Toldos. The Rebbe said, in honor of his birthday, he's going to explain a Rasha of that Parsha. And that's why you see here that in the Ha'oris here, I think he speaks about becoming 80. It was his 80th birthday. So the Rebbe said a special Rasha for him, connected it to the union of Harchav Picha, which is written in Kapitel Pei Aleph. And he said that when you become 80, you start saying Kapitel Pei Aleph. So this is a lesson that he's supposed to take. And Rebbe Devail explained this whole Rasha, but it was all in his honor. And that's why when we printed it, says Shabbos Parsha Chayesora, because the Rebbe said it, Chayesora, in honor of him, his birthday was Parsha Toldos, and the birthday of 80 years old, which is the Techin of the Sikh. Then, in that same Ha'orah, as I mentioned before, it says that you become 80, you say 81, you become, whatever birthday you have, you become 13, you start saying Kapitel Yudal, it goes on and on. What happened was like this. Let me start from the beginning. Quite a few years before the Rebbe even said the Sikha, I heard from somebody that the Rebbe said, not to him, he said he heard it from somebody that the Rebbe and Yechidus told him, Avort. And Yechidus, the Rebbe was talking to him about the meaning of saying the Kapitel Tilim of your age. That whatever you become, you say the next. So he told me that the Rebbe told this person, and the guy said that he heard it in the Rebbe Yechidus, a remes to this inyan. The remes was that the Gemara says that Kapitel Aleph and Kapitel Beis in Tilim are really one Kapitel. By us, it's two. It's really one. If it's one, then as you go on, it's always a number before. So Dalet is not really Dalet, it's Gimel. Kapitel Ayin Beis is really Ayin Aleph. The last words of Kapitel Ayin Beis, which is really Ayin Aleph, is Kolu Tfilas David ben Yishai. That David finished his Tfilas. That means he passed away. That means when David passed away, he was saying Kapitel Ayin Aleph. How old was he passed away? He was 70. So here we have a remes that you have to say the Kapitel, like if you're 70, you have to say Kapitel some Ayin Aleph. But it's all based on this thing that Ayin Aleph and Beis are one. But mainly, really, Ayin Beis is really Ayin Aleph, and that's the remes. I like the word very much. I came to Rabbi Yael and I told Rabbi Yael, was writing the Sichos over the Sichos. I said, here's a word from the Rebbe. I never heard about Fabrengen, never Sichos, never didn't write it. So I said, Shmak a word. And no one knows it. So if there's ever a Sicha that you're writing, I used to help him a little bit in the Sichos also, because the Sichos, and it comes up this idea of saying the Kapitel Tilim for the age. Put this in. It's a word of the Rebbe. Make it in the Hora because the Rebbe said it. He tells me I ain't going to do it. I said to him, why? So he said, because I know what's going to happen. We'll write it, and the Rebbe will right away write. How could you say such a thing when by us it's not Ayin, Aleph and Beis are not one, it's two. So really it's Ayin Beis, so it doesn't fit. So you got it. So the Rebbe will ask all kinds of questions, and I'll get stuck, and I know that I'm not doing it. He didn't. There was a time he could have put it in, he didn't want to. When it came to this Sikha, that's when I worked in the Sikhas. So I did put it in. So I put in the order, just the order. And this thing, the word that there's a remes to this minig that the Baal Shem Tov said from this Inyan. They gave it into the Rebbe. So what happened was the Rebbe took this order, expanded the Ha'orah to make it 3 times the size. You see the long Ha'orah here, Ha'orah 31 with the Shula Gillion on the bottom. And the Rebbe goes into the whole idea that we find that it's according to this, there are less kapitlach in Tilim, and we find a lot of places where we find different numbers, like even Chumash. Some places are 5 Chumoshim, some places 7 Chumoshim, because Ba'aleischa has 3, because of Ahid and Seya. The Gemara says one place that the Gemara has, even Chumash, Gans Dorim, there's 53 parashas, and really there are 54. We have a Shas. How many Mesichtas in Shas? So it says 60, and another place says not 60, less. And Rebbe went a whole big Ha'orah, the Rebbe expanded on this, on the word that he said. Fine. This came out, this Liko, this Sikha came out for Shabbos Parshas Toldos, Tovshin Lamed Dalet. Shabbos by Fabrengen, actually I wasn't there, I was in Miami already, but Shabbos Fabrengen, the Rebbe spoke about it. And the Rebbe said in the Sikha that came out, it said so and so. And the Rebbe said, well, we got a problem. But it's not, according to us, it's not. How do we say that it's because of the capital Ayin Beis, when it's because it's really Ayin Aleph, it's really not Ayin Aleph, it's Ayin Beis by us. The exact problem that Rabbi Yael was worried that the Rebbe would do, it's exactly what happened. Which I saw, by the way, that he has a chush, he knew exactly, what was going to happen. And when the Rebbe did, the Rebbe spoke about it, and the Rebbe had a whole beer why originally it was 1 kapitel, the first 2, and then later became by us it's 2 kapitel, and it must be the difference in time of David and time of Golis. A whole arichas he spoke that both numbers are right. The male of this number that it's Ayin Aleph is also right. And after Shabbos, the Rebbe gave over that they should write up this Sikha that he said and add it to the Sikha. What should add it? The liquid came out already for Shabbos. So a lot of times what used to be that the week later, at the end of the next week's Sikha, it would say Hashmotah. We called something that was omitted in the previous. But the same thing here, the Rebbe said to write it up, and in the next week, it was printed as a Sofer, and when it was turned into Svarim, look at the Sichos, it was put into the right place right after that. That's why it's not 2 columns, it's a Sofer that the Rebbe wanted then. That's the background of this thing. Anyway, the bottom line is that David should help, we should do the job and do the Aveda and expand and be Zeiche to Nikla Kved Hashem and all Bossa Yad of Kipi Hashem Diver. Especially the month of Kislev, the Chedesh HaGeula, and Yitzhak Hashem very, very soon, because of Namish.
Amen. Shkach.
Rabbi Zelkson sent this, your whole explanation on this.
Oh, he did?
His thing in Zechronis.
He sent my, because I said it once on the Zechronis.
That's why I heard it. I heard it on Zechronis.
Oh, you heard it? Okay.
So he sent it there. A very nice shot. Shkoyach.
Yeah.